In the annals of military history, there exists a paradox that has puzzled historians, strategists, and military enthusiasts for generations. How is it possible that intelligent, experienced military leaders would knowingly deploy weapon systems that they understood to be fundamentally flawed? How could rational decision-makers, entrusted with the lives of their soldiers and the fate of their nations, choose to arm their forces with equipment they knew would likely fail when it mattered most? The answer lies in the complex intersection of desperation, politics, technological ambition, and the harsh realities of warfare, where sometimes the choice is not between good and bad options, but between bad and worse. This is the story of "They knew this weapon would fail, they used it anyway," a deep dive into one of the most controversial and tragic decisions in military procurement history. We will explore the circumstances that led to this fateful choice, the human cost of deploying known defective equipment, and the lessons learned from this dark chapter in military development. This is not just a story about weapons and warfare, but about the dangerous intersection of politics, pride, and military necessity, where the consequences of poor decisions are measured not in dollars or reputation, but in human lives. Prepare to uncover the layers of bureaucratic pressure, technological hubris, and strategic miscalculation that led to one of the most preventable military disasters in modern history, revealing how the pursuit of innovation and the pressure of wartime urgency can create a perfect storm of failure, demonstrating that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is not the one across the battlefield, but the one in the mirror. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel right now for more incredible war secrets and the legendary military technologies that are reshaping the future of global defense. The weapon in question was the M16 rifle during its initial deployment in Vietnam, specifically the early variants that were rushed into service between 1963 and 1967. The M16 represented a revolutionary leap in small arms technology, featuring a lightweight design, high-velocity ammunition, and a rate of fire that promised to give American forces a significant advantage over their adversaries. However, beneath its sleek exterior and impressive specifications lay a series of fundamental design flaws and manufacturing shortcuts that would prove deadly in the humid, dirty conditions of Southeast Asian combat. The problems with the early M16 were not hidden secrets discovered only after deployment. Military testing had revealed significant reliability issues, including frequent jamming, extraction failures, and a tendency for the weapon to malfunction when exposed to dirt, moisture, and the corrosive effects of tropical environments. The rifle's direct impingement gas system, while innovative, was particularly susceptible to fouling, and the lightweight construction that made it so portable also made it fragile under combat conditions. Most critically, the ammunition initially supplied with the rifle used a different powder composition than what the weapon had been designed and tested with, leading to increased fouling and cycling problems. Despite these known issues, the decision was made to proceed with full-scale deployment to Vietnam. The reasons were complex and multifaceted. The military was under intense pressure to modernize its small arms. There was significant political investment in the M16 program, and the alternative, continuing to use the heavier, older M14 rifle, was seen as tactically disadvantageous in the close-quarters jungle warfare of Vietnam. The decision-makers convinced themselves that the problems could be solved through training, maintenance procedures, and field modifications, underestimating the severity of the reliability issues and overestimating the ability of soldiers to compensate for mechanical failures under combat stress. The human cost of this decision became apparent almost immediately upon the M16's widespread deployment in Vietnam. Soldiers reported that their rifles would jam at critical moments, leaving them defenseless in firefights. The extraction failures meant that spent cartridge cases would become stuck in the chamber, requiring soldiers to use cleaning rods or other tools to clear the weapon, a time-consuming and dangerous process in the middle of combat. Many soldiers lost their lives not because they were outgunned or outmaneuvered, but because their primary weapon simply stopped working when they needed it most. The psychological impact on the troops was devastating. Soldiers began to lose confidence in their equipment and, by extension, in the military leadership that had provided it. Many units began acquiring AK-47s from fallen enemy soldiers, preferring the reliability of the Soviet-designed weapon over their own issued rifles. The breakdown in trust between soldiers and their equipment created a crisis of morale that extended far beyond the technical problems of the rifle itself. Letters home from soldiers described their frustration and fear, with many expressing the sentiment that they felt abandoned by a system that had knowingly given them defective equipment. The military's initial response to these complaints was denial and deflection. Rather than acknowledging the fundamental design problems, officials blamed the failures on inadequate soldier training, poor maintenance practices, and the harsh conditions of jungle warfare. This response only deepened the crisis of confidence, as soldiers who were experiencing life-threatening equipment failures were told that the problems were their own fault. It would take years of mounting casualties, congressional investigations, and media exposure before the military would finally acknowledge the scope of the problem and take meaningful action to address it. The institutional factors that led to the M16 debacle reveal much about the dangers of military procurement processes driven by politics rather than performance. The rifle had powerful advocates within the Pentagon and the defense industry who had invested significant political capital in its success. Acknowledging the weapon's problems would have meant admitting that these influential figures had made serious errors in judgment, potentially damaging careers and relationships that extended far beyond the military sphere. The sunk cost fallacy also played a role. With millions of dollars already invested in the M16 program, there was enormous pressure to make it work, rather than starting over with a different design. The urgency of wartime deployment created additional pressure to overlook known problems. With American forces already engaged in Vietnam and facing an enemy armed with reliable automatic weapons, there was a perceived need to get modern rifles into soldiers' hands as quickly as possible. This urgency was used to justify shortcuts in testing, quality control, and the gradual introduction that would normally accompany such a significant change in equipment. The military convinced itself that it was better to deploy a flawed weapon immediately than to wait for a perfect weapon that might not be available for months or years. The role of contractor relationships and defense industry politics cannot be understated in this story. The companies involved in M16 production had significant financial incentives to minimize problems and expedite deployment. Quality control issues that should have stopped production were overlooked or minimized, and feedback from early users was filtered through layers of corporate and military bureaucracy that had vested interests in the program's success. The revolving door between military leadership and defense contractors created conflicts of interest that made objective evaluation of the weapon's performance difficult. The long-term consequences of the M16 debacle extended far beyond the immediate tactical problems it created. The loss of trust between soldiers and their equipment contributed to broader morale problems that plagued American forces throughout the Vietnam conflict. The incident also led to significant reforms in military procurement processes, including more rigorous testing requirements, better feedback mechanisms from field units, and greater congressional oversight of major weapons programs. These reforms, while important, came too late to help the soldiers who had paid the ultimate price for the military's willingness to deploy equipment it knew to be defective. The M16 story also highlighted the dangers of technological hubris in military planning. The rifle's designers and advocates were so convinced of the superiority of their innovative approach that they dismissed or minimized feedback that contradicted their assumptions. This technological arrogance, combined with the institutional pressures described above, created an environment where known problems were rationalized away rather than addressed. The incident serves as a cautionary tale about the importance of humility and rigorous testing in military technology development. Perhaps most tragically, the M16 debacle was entirely preventable. The technical problems that plagued the rifle were not insurmountable engineering challenges, but rather the result of rushed development, inadequate testing, and poor quality control. With proper development time, thorough field testing, and a commitment to addressing identified problems before deployment, the M16 could have been the revolutionary weapon its advocates claimed it to be. Instead, it became a symbol of institutional failure and the human cost of prioritizing politics and expediency over soldier safety and mission effectiveness. They knew this weapon would fail, they used it anyway, is ultimately a story about the dangers of institutional pressure, technological arrogance, and the willingness to sacrifice soldier safety for political and bureaucratic convenience. It serves as a powerful reminder that in military affairs, the consequences of poor decision-making are not abstract policy failures, but human lives lost and missions compromised. The M16 debacle demonstrates how even well-intentioned efforts to modernize and improve military capabilities can go tragically wrong when institutional incentives are misaligned with operational realities. The lessons of this story extend far beyond military procurement to any field where safety and reliability are paramount. It shows how organizational culture, political pressure, and financial incentives can combine to create environments where known problems are ignored or minimized, often with tragic consequences. The story serves as a call for transparency, accountability, and the courage to acknowledge and address problems even when doing so is politically or financially inconvenient. If this incredible story of "they knew this weapon would fail, they used it anyway" has captivated you as much as it has captivated us, please make sure to hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. What other examples of institutional failure in military procurement do you find most concerning? Do you believe adequate safeguards exist today to prevent similar tragedies? We'd love to hear your perspective on these critical issues. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more secrets of war and incredible stories of the battles and technologies that are shaping our world. Ring that notification bell so you never miss an episode, because we're committed to bringing you the most compelling stories that demonstrate how institutional accountability and quality craftsmanship, combined with unparalleled human courage, can create legends that endure for generations and prove that true excellence never compromises on the fundamentals that matter most.